The one thing that lifters have never really understood is every time you go someplace to compete, your entry fee is voting for the
Get the fuck up. Simon says, get the fuck up. Throw your hands in the sky.
Do you think geared powerlifting will come back into dominance, or is raw powerlifting here to stay? That's interesting because when you're saying geared powerlifting, are you speaking, single ply and multiply together and that's geared? Or is it just multiply and that's considered geared where single ply really wouldn't be? Because if you're asking and you're saying that multiply is the definition of geared powerlifting, well then geared powerlifting really never was dominant as far as the number of powerlifters competing. It was probably the minority. Well, I don't want to say that because raw really didn't even exist for a long time, but single ply was always more popular and more dominant as far as the actual number of lifters around the world and even in the United States than multiply was. Now, with geared powerlifting together, the single ply and the multiply compared to raw today, which is more dominant? I don't know, because this becomes a real tricky question, because a lot of federations have kind of fell to the wayside. Other federations have kind of come in, and picked up a little bit, where everybody's under the assumption that the sport of powerlifting has grown, and I would probably tend to agree that it's grown, but I don't know if it's grown by the numbers that people think it's grown by, because a lot of dominant federations no longer exist. But there's no doubt that there's more raw powerlifting than there was before, because there was no raw powerlifting division. Now, will geared powerlifting become more popular again? If history repeats itself, then the answer is going to be yes. How soon? I don't know. Has it taken a hit? Yes. I don't think it's necessarily taken a hit because geared lifters are moving to single ply and raw. It does happen, but there's not this mass exodus where they're leaving geared and then moving into one of those other disciplines. I think what's happening is you're seeing the natural attrition that would happen through powerlifting. The people that are retiring out of the geared lifting, they're just not being replaced with the people from the other disciplines into geared lifting, which is why there's less multiply lifters than before. The single ply, I don't know. I can't find research or numbers, and no federation wants to share how many members that they have. So I don't know what impact raw's really had on single ply powerlifting. Raw is popular today, but we're already starting to see things happen over the past, just this year, with certain singlets being banned because of thickness. I don't want to mention brand names, but one of them, what's just put in the rule book, is not being allowed. Knee sleeves have gone from just regular knee sleeves that I don't think really add any weight or have any carryover, to knee sleeves that I've been told can put 40 to 80 pounds on a lift, depending upon who the lifter is. Take the numbers out of it and just say that the stronger knee sleeves are giving about the same carryover as light wraps. So you're already starting to see the equipment in the raw area become better you know, the same as we've seen over the years with the single ply and the multiply. So these lines will begin to become blurred like they had with single ply and multiply at a certain point in time. And then either more people are going to move into the single ply or more people are going to move into, you know, raw with wraps. You know, who really knows we can only sit here and speculate, you know, what's going to happen, but I don't see a whole lot of raw with wrap lifters jumping straight into full multiply gear. I don't see that happening. If you're a lifter today, coming in the sport, trying to decide what to do, the best thing to do is to decide where the best lifters are, or who you consider the best lifters to be, and then that's who you're going to want to compete against. This isn't saying don't compete in multiply if that's what you want to do, but if the majority of the top lifters are in raw with wraps and you want to be a top lifter, then I've always been under the assumption you go where the top lifters are, and then you kind of go that way. So do I think multiply is going to come into dominance again? I don't know. Maybe, you know, years down, but there's certain factors that everybody needs to keep in mind. With raw powerlifting, the cost of entry is very low, and I'm not talking meat entry. I'm talking the gear that you need to buy and what you need to be able to compete in. You can relatively just wear nothing, pay the entry, and go lift. If you're going to lift in a multiply meet, you're looking at a lot of money. You know, you're looking at over $1,000 just in the gear. There is one caveat though that does bother me that I don't really understand is with the whole knee sleeve thing is, you know, and I get the wraps and the knee sleeves, and wraps can have more carryover than knee sleeves. You got raw with sleeves and raw with wraps. But you don't have single ply with sleeves and single ply with wraps, and you don't have multiply with sleeves and multiply with wraps. So it's one of those things that's like, come on guys, you know, let's just decide on one and just kind of stick with that, because especially now that some of the sleeves are given much of the same as the wraps, I just don't get it. But I'm not a decision maker there. And the cool thing now is with the number of lifters that are coming into the sport and the number of lifters that are in there, the one thing that lifters have never really understood is every time you go someplace to compete, your entry fee is voting for the type of lifting that you want to do. So you have the power to determine what lifting you want to be the most dominant just by where you compete. So use that power, because that's what makes the difference. And that's why you see raw powerlifting being more popular now than everything else, is because there's just more people paying entry fees to lift in raw meats. You know, the best specific thing for a beginner or a novice to do is just something like, Dave, you got like 6 weeks of glycogen in your system right now. You know that, so I kind of knew it was going to be